I saw people when they looked at me and talked to me and talked bad about my parents and whatnot, and all the jokes about Samoans. And then I see the same thing happening with Micronesian people. People talk similarly about them, and then I'm like, oh, they're just the latest group to arrive.
Hey, James. Thanks so much for hanging out with me here today. It's really cool seeing you on the pod because you're kind of one of the pod fathers, I think, of Hawaii podcasting, wouldn't you say? Because you were doing that with your friends long before it was cool.
Yeah. It was over 10 years ago, actually. It was the guys with issues. It was myself, Russell Kealoha, and Chad Wago,
Yeah,
which originally started was no video. Everything was just audio. So,
right.
you know, we were cool with it because nobody could see what we actually looked like.
Oh man, what about it? What that was it that drew you to wanting to do something like that? Because at the time, not very many, if anybody here locally was doing that. What made you guys feel like, hey, let's be the first, or let's go ahead and take this opportunity to try it out?
Well, it was other stand-up comedians that would travel through Hawaii and that we would meet,
Mm,
and they were saying how it's perfect for comedians because when you do comedy, like you say on TV or something or
yeah.
radio, you have a producer who does no experience with comedy tells you, "Hey, why don't you try that thing where you throw popcorn at each other because that's hilarious." So comedians, it was like it was you're the producer, the director, and the creator, and
Hmm.
you can do it however you wanted. There's no rules. You just other than whatever federal rules or laws, I guess, but
Right.
you could say what you want unfiltered. And that's why a lot of podcasts that are successful now are actually stand-up comedians who have their podcasts, and then you get your stage persona that you do your act or your bits or
Hmm.
whatever's, and then you get the unfiltered comedian on the podcast.
Before we even jumped on, you're saying like, you know, comedians, we don't have anything to hide. What is it about, this freedom to express yourself in such a open manner? Because I mean, the audience could be any type of person, anywhere. What is it about this, ability to share your gifts, your talents, your thoughts that draws you to this?
Well, I've been doing it for maybe like 14 years now, and you learn as you go. When you start out, you're like real cheesy and hacky, and waka waka waka. But as you continue performing the hits and misses, you learn more from the misses or the bombing, um, and then you start to analyze, self-analyze, and then you start to see, okay, this didn't work for me. This worked for me. Okay, let me try this. And then next thing you know, you find out that being honest is probably the funniest thing. And also the audience can tell. And it's something I learned a lot from Andy Bumatai. Took me under his wing. And one thing he told me was when I was doing this joke, and this is when I first started, so it was about farting. And, and Andy comes up to me, he goes, "Oh, that story about the bathroom, that's fake." And I go, "Yeah, the story about the bus, I was a city bus driver at the time. The story about the bus, that was real." And I was like, "Yeah, how'd you know?" He said, "I can tell the way you tell the story.
Wow.
If you don't believe it up here, it's not going to come out, and the audience is not going to believe it."
Hmm.
So, and then when I analyzed my set, uh, the bit about the bus, which was like maybe like 10 minutes long, it destroyed it, does really well. And then that bit about me in the bathroom and walking to the bathroom and some guy in a stall farts. It's like it didn't. It got laughs, but it's kind of like ah ha ha. Not that belly laugh.
Hmm.
And then so I was like, oh, yeah. Then you learn. Like I said, you learn as you go, and you start to see that your real life is actually funnier than the stuff you make up. Uh, of course, you need to have you embellish a lot.
Hmm.
You start to, you take real stories, and a lot of my stories that I do tell actually happen, but then you end up, embellishing, and then it becomes funnier. But it has to come from someplace that you've experienced or you actually see. So like one exercise he had me do was a story about because I used to drive city bus for about 17 years in Honolulu,
Oh wow.
and I have a bit about tourists coming on the bus. So Andy goes, "Well, what were they wearing?" It's like, What does it matter? So, well, if you don't see it, we don't see it.
Oh
It's like,
wow.
yeah. So when it came to years later, creative writing, and then having that in my mind, like, oh yeah, I need to picture what's happening. And when I write sketches, if I can't see it, then it won't come out on social media. It won't come out. The sketch won't come out right.
Yeah.
And so like a lot of these things that conversations with Andy Bumatai, on top of actually experiencing, getting on stage and hitting or missing, kind of helped me in my career of being I don't like to toot my own horn, but being a funny comedian.
I'll toot that horn for you. You're hilarious.
Yeah, like, toot toot.
Yeah. You're talking about how Andy Bumatai kind of took you under his wing and stuff. And um, I feel like that's such a Hawaii thing to do. Like people kind of look out for each other and such. And to have someone of his success and his stature seek you out, because don't correct me if I'm wrong, you didn't go and seek out his advice on that. He approached you to teach you that lesson, right?
With stand-up comedians, we're kind of a stuck-up bunch. I'll share a story with you later on. Yeah, Andy saw something in me and said, "Oh, I'll help this kid out." And when going back to what I was saying, where we're kind of stuck up is there was an incident with I'll say names, or they're cool. So Keely So Silly
Hmm.
and Easton James, Clowning 808. They came to an Andy Bumatai show at Blue Note. I'm opening for Andy, and Easton James, and these are really nice guys. They've been nothing but nice to me. So they come up to me outside the show before we start, and they're like, "Oh, hey, I'm a comedian," and I'm like, "Oh, okay. Have I seen you before?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, on Instagram." And this is like maybe 8 years ago, before
Yeah.
content creators and so Instagram's starting out, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, all right, cool." He says, "Wonder if you can meet Andy." I was like, "Well, I'll have to ask. I don't know." I go and ask Andy. Say, "Hey, there's these guys that want to meet you. They're local. They say they're comedians, but I've never seen them before." So I'm sitting with Paul Ogata, and we're talking, and then I bring in Easton and Keely Sosili, and and they're like, "Oh, how's Andy? Hawaii Godfather of comedy."
Yeah.
So I just let you know we do comedy too. And Andy goes, "Oh, where at?" And he goes, "Instagram." He's like, "No, no, where do you perform?" He's like, "Oh, we make videos on Instagram." And me and Paul are on the side like, "Man, those aren't comedians. Like, they're not comedians. I mean, they don't do what we do." And then so Andy's talking to, and then all of a sudden, I guess me and Paul, as we're saying this, we're like, and it's kind of messed up our attitude right now. It's like we're all stuck up. It's like then we figured out. It's like, okay, yes, they are comedians. They're not stand up comedians.
Mm.
That's so we have to separate ourselves from as okay, we're stand up. And then Andy, who taught me this phrase that he learned from, I don't know if it's like Mort Saul or one of these old guys, and he was saying like, you gotta appreciate this thing that we do as stand up comedians, because the most difficult thing to do in show business is comedy. So show
Hmm.
business is comedy. The most difficult thing to do in comedy is stand up comedy. So it's a very small number of people that do what we do, because it's most people's fear is speaking, public speaking.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you gotta respect this thing that we do, and it's like so. Then me and Paul was like, that's why we're stuck up. We're like, hey, we're the one percenters, man. These comedians that they record their sketch. Oh, cut. Let's
Yeah.
start again. We do ours live. So after that night, we kind of like, all right, we are stuck up. We got to ease up. Like Will Ferrell doesn't do stand up, but
Mhm.
he's a comedian. So it's like, all
Right.
right, we gotta, stop, get off of our, our high chair and come back down to earth and be like, oh yeah, that's right. We're all comedians. Okay.
That's
Cool.
interesting though that you guys were so self-aware to, self-police yourself, because I always feel like some of the times it seems as if those who are successful are so like headstrong, and like it almost can, it's a fine line between arrogance and confidence. And how do you, toe that line of, no, I'm just being confident versus arrogant, and you guys are able to kind of, you know like I said, self-police yourself. That's really interesting.
Well, a lot of our stuff, even when we write, is us digging into ourselves. And I think that's why, the scary part of stand-up comedy is when you dig into yourself and you find out things about yourself or things that you think about or believe that are they're really dark.
So what is it that what does it do for you personally, that, I mean, the fact that, yeah, you put aside human beings, greatest fear of public speaking, and you also have this thing where you recognize, like, I don't want to have these kind of thoughts, but that's part of the process, and that's what I got to do. It's a very specific decision that you're making to really commit your life to this. So I've got to imagine there's got to be a really strong, calling or reason as for you as to why you do that.
Yeah, part of it is like if you look at it from like Khalil Palanca, who is I'm sure you've met him, Mr. Aloha,
Yeah.
loves everybody. He does it because it brings happiness to
Hmm.
everybody, and it does. When you're
Yeah.
up there and people are laughing and they tell you, "Oh, thank you so much." I've had people they say like, "Oh, I was having a bad day, but then I came here and I feel really good." Yada yada. So it's like that's why I do it, because that make these people happy also makes me happy. It makes me feel good.
When you're growing up, was this, not that you thought, oh, I'm going to be a comedian, or maybe you did, but was there always that hunger for wanting to provide people happiness or make people happy? Like, where did this come from?
I guess our house growing up, there was I had two sisters and a brother, and our house just every average everyday family. The house can be a little bit dirty or maybe shirt on the floor. There's average stuff, not like
Yeah.
filthy.
Right.
And then when somebody's coming over, all of a sudden, clean up the house, cleaning up, putting things away and straightening up. And then when they come in, next thing you know, mom and dad are different people.
Mm.
Like they're they're welcoming the people, presenting themselves very nice
Yeah.
way. And I'm like, who are these people? That's not my parents, but they were just yelling at me like 10 minutes ago. Now all of a sudden they're the nicest people in the world. What is this? And so that presentation of welcoming people, or,
Mm.
over to your house, and that's part of it too. Where when I see people act different, because I people watch a lot,
Yeah.
and I used to when I worked the city busing, and when you got injured, you worked light duty, so they put me in the bus pass office, and so I got this other bit, my city bus bit. So my friend who's this local brother, saying, "Oh, how's it, bro? How's it be? How's you, talks real moke like, how can I help you? Right on, okay, yeah, we'll take your picture for your bus pass." And then when Japanese tourists come in
Yeah.
and they ask a question, and then he goes, "Oh no, we don't give changey." And I'm like, why are you talking like that? He said, "Oh, so sorry." And I'm like, why'd you change the way you talk? That's how they talk.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
how you talk. Why are you changing? And then that clicked for me too. Is that so? It's that funny thing where my parents would just turn into all of a sudden the Broadway show to
Yeah.
welcome these people. And so the part of that, I guess, growing up seeing that, I started doing that as a kid. Okay,
Ah.
somebody come over, I got to entertain, I got to. And then going to school, I was always a class clown because I always had to entertain my classmates or something. And I'm that kid in Alva Scott Elementary that's always sitting outside class by himself because the teacher can go outside till you learn how to act.
Did you ever catch the teachers, even though they still punished you, they were laughing too? Like, did they ever appreciate your humor?
I've had one teacher that would always say "nice try," or
Mm.
my fifth grade teacher, Mrs. Matsuura, was like one of my favorite teachers, and she was supportive, even though I was doing something. She's like, "James, you're not supposed to be doing that. We have rules, but you know that's a pretty clever one.
Oh.
And it's always something that I've said after they said something. Like we have to learn what is it, the Gettysburg Address. She wanted us
Hmm.
to learn it word for word. I had to study, and we all actually did it. I'm like, why? It's like, why are we learning that he doesn't even speak the English that we speak?
Yeah.
He's just four score. So he's keeping points from a game, and then that just me commentating, and that pissed off a lot of teachers.
But with this teacher, that she had this different approach, did that help shape you in any way, in the sense of seeing the contrast between, what you're normally used to from these teachers, and then seeing her treat you in this way where she's still going to discipline you, but she's in a way showing you respect, right? And encouragement.
Yeah, and maybe that's why she was my favorite teacher. It was like you kind of nurtured, like, hey, you have something. You're
Mm.
creative. You have something. Because actually, wow, I never thought about it. Are you a psychiatrist? What's happening here? Because
Why don't you lie
the
down on that
first,
couch back there?
yeah, because the first sketch comedy that I've written was in fifth grade. It was that class. I never thought about it. And it was because she was saying she wanted us to do a presentation, but do it however we want to do it. And it was me and my other classmate, and I wrote a sketch, and I forget exactly what it was, but we were making fun of Joe Moore. Yeah, this is in the
It's
'80s. He was
hilarious
still around.
already.
So, yeah.
I don't care what the
So
punchline
it
is.
was,
That's hilarious.
and he says, and finally,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was making fun of Joe Moore, and I remember saying, "Oh, that's really funny." I've had other say that I should be a pastor, and I think it's because that lady was religious, and
Hmm.
she was saying when I would speak in front of the class or something, um, I don't know. She told my mom. I just remember hearing it and thinking, "Are you crazy?"
What did your parents do for a living?
So my dad, he started out in Samoa. He was a policeman, and then became a teacher, and then he was also representative
Oh, wow.
for one of the districts that our village was in American Samoa. And I know his big thing was like, yeah, I put street lights in our village. Like, ooh, right on, Dad. And then when we come to Hawaii, it's a typical immigrant story. Came to Hawaii, worked at a moving company, then got up to city bus, and then became a supervisor at the city bus. That's how I got in. My
Oh.
mom was always with banks. She worked, I think, the America Samoa Bank or something like that, and then she worked here, First Hawaiian and Bank of Hawaii, and um, it's so they were just blue collar, hardworking people, and they had to because there's four of us that ate a lot. So they was like, yeah, and my it's funny because when we came over, um, my grandmother on my dad's side lived in KPT. My sister came over and said, and is just crying. She's the oldest one. She's crying. She's like, I don't want to live here. So we ended up, my dad, my parents worked hard so that we could live in Pearl Ridge. So we're not that, stereotypical, 1980s Samoan family. We're we were in Pro Ridge, grew up with a lot of Asians where I
Yeah.
grew up. So I know more of their culture than my own sometimes. So,
Why did your family decide to move to Hawaii?
well, my dad's reason was education. My
Uh,
mom says education, but I know she liked the finer things in life.
uh,
The because I mean, American Samoa in 1975 when I was born is it's a third world country now, but back then I'm sure it was even ride a horse to work. I'm guessing. So she visited Hawaii and she saw what it was like, and it was probably like, yeah, I want to go to America. And
mm,
she used to have the updo with the hair and the makeup, and it's funny because when people would assume that because we're Samoans we're poor, she would always like check them. Like I don't know if you're familiar with the Aiea area, but there's a store called Speedy's back in the 80s. That's where we would buy green bananas and canned foods. So the lady says, "Oh, will you be paying with food stamp?" And my mom lets her wallet, her purse open up, and then the flap that opens up has all the credit cards. She goes, "Excuse me." I was standing there like, "Yeah, mom, you tell her."
I didn't even realize that um, that stigma and stereotype was so prevalent of that that Samoan families were poor.
For me, that's why I don't make fun of Micronesian people.
Oh,
There's comedians that they say one thing is as a comedian you don't want a low bearing fruit or whatever, but for me it's more personal because my parents migrated, um, the 80s or the 70s,
hmm,
and I saw the way we grew up, the way people saw us, because I didn't grow up in Halava or Kuhio where I was around other Samoans. I
yeah,
saw people the way they looked at me and talked to me and talked bad about my parents and whatnot, and all the jokes about Samoans. All they do is drink beer, they don't work, they beat up their wives. And then I see the same thing happening with Micronesian people. People talk similarly
hmm,
about them, and then I'm like, oh, they're just the latest group to arrive, and it probably was like that even before whoever was before Samoans that came over. That group was getting it. So when I seen that, I was like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna do that because also we're in IL we had a lot of different Micronesian groups.
hmm,
So learning, I was like, oh, you guys aren't the same. It's just kind of
yeah.
it's like saying Samoans and Tongans are the same. So then I start to I get educated on their culture too, and so it's like even more so. That's why I don't make fun of Micronesian people.
I totally respect that, and I think that perspective is what's needed for a lot of people when they don't think about the other side, or looking back at history and realizing that
Mm-hmm.
this is something we don't really want to continue on. But
Yeah.
what about those people? I hear this a lot from local people, is like, hey, it's just jokes, like we make fun of all races and such.
Yeah.
Like, how is it different in your eyes that what people are doing and saying in their quote unquote jokes about Micronesians versus the other races and jokes that people do on that?
Well, for starters, I mean, growing up in the 80s, and like I said, where Samoans were the ones that they're making fun of, we weren't considered locals.
Mm.
It was, oh, that local brada over there. No, no, the sole over there. It wasn't. It's like, oh, 'cause I consider myself local because one, I'm not fluent in the Samoan language, which is bad for a Samoan. But
Oh, really?
I grew up. I moved. We moved here. I was 8 months old. I grew up in Aiea, mostly Asians in my neighborhood. So like when they make fun of locals, when locals make fun of stuff, and I can too because like I said, I grew up. I consider myself a local,
Yeah.
but I know that a lot of the locals didn't consider us Samoans as locals growing up, but now we are, and a lot of it is because we've been here a long time. We've mixed into the culture, and now and that's where I noticed it. Where it's like okay, we're local now, but the Micronesians aren't considered locals. And that's when I figured that part out. It's like,
Mm,
um, but for myself personally, I'd make fun of other ethnicities because I grew up with them too.
yeah.
Um, even the accents, the Vietnamese. So my best friends growing up are Vietnamese. I know that when I go to, we lived in an apartment. So when I go to his apartment to ask if he can come play, I have to eat first because that's how Vietnamese moms say, hey, no, no, you guys come eat. So we're all eating sandwiches. And then we go and we can play.
It's weird because, when I look back, 20, 30 years ago, the things that I found hilarious back then and would defend to the death, if when I think about it now, I'm forgiving of myself for laughing because at the time it was acceptable, but now I'm a little, like, who can't say that, or that even laughing at that is pretty offensive, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, because then it's no more Portuguese jokes. I don't like growing up. I remember that was the thing. It was which in the states in the continent would be Polish jokes. So
hmm which is funny because I didn't know how you could tell who actually was of Portuguese descent. So we'd have it was this, like, you know abyss of humans that I didn't know, and we just make
that's
fun of them.
funny. You're right because I didn't know till maybe in my 30s what Portuguese locals actually look like. I know now it's Hernandez, or
Yeah,
but
Silva.
back then, yeah, because Portuguese wasn't necessarily an ethnic group to
Hmm.
us that were doing the jokes or playing
Yeah,
around. It was, oh, that person is, you know dumb.
yeah, yeah,
Oh, Portuguese.
yeah, yeah. Those poor
Oh,
Portuguese
Portuguese.
people.
Oh, these
Yeah.
Portuguese. Yeah,
Like, what do we
you
do?
never knew until wait. That's an actual
Yeah,
Portugal. What are you
yeah,
talking about?
yeah.
That's funny.
I wanted to ask you because, it seems like when we talk about and think about Hawaii, we all say like it's such a special place. It's so unique. For comedy though, I mean, having it be so special, is that maybe not so good because it's so unique in such a environment that doing comedy here is a little more difficult than, say, like LA or New York.
Well, I think for us, it's easy being local,
Hmm.
growing up here, knowing the inside jokes, knowing Portuguese and uh, the way most locals feel about certain things. So for us, I guess it's not so difficult for us. I know some. Luckily, there's TV and social media, so that mainland comics when they come down, local people know what to expect.
Mm.
Um, for us to go to like I went to LA last year, and I went to this alternative comedy showcase, and I was in, and I do a joke where I talk about a flight attendant that I'm fighting with, not physically, but I hate her because yada yada, and then it usually kills. It's killed in the Northwest. It's killed in Vegas, and then I go to this place in LA, and it doesn't. It's not. I'm not getting that pop. Where's that laugh? I'm like, man, what's happening? And another friend of mine who lived in Hawaii was up there visiting, so he came to the show and he was like, "Oh, you got to remember, LA is woke. They don't want to hear a man fighting a woman." I'm
Mm.
like, oh, so it can work the other way,
Yeah.
for Hawaii going up there. Tumua, who's been touring and doing really well, he's I think finding out that the local stuff works when local people that live in New York come to the show.
Hmm.
You get that pocket of locals that laugh, but then the others that don't get it that in the room. So he was talking about how he has to make a change with his jokes. You have to turn material. You have to know your crowd. The thing I like about Hawaii is you have a table from West Side, Waianae. You have a table from Hawaii Kai. You have a table from Mililani. all different types of people, but they all kind of get the joke.
Yeah.
Um, and then you also, if you're in town, then you have a table. It could be from one of the states up in the continent, or maybe even from Japan or Australia. So the one thing about performing here that's helped myself, local comics, is that we know how to make our jokes reach the room of mixed cultures. That's why Paul Ogata does well. Kermit Appeal.
How did you get into comedy? Do you and what was your first performance in stand up?
So I was always a fan of stand-up comedy. I think growing up in the '80s with the they call it the booming '80s when Andy went from high school days and all in Ohana, shot up to the mainland and was doing all these shows. So I got to see the coming on HBO specials, like um, Rodney Dangerfield, Rosie O'Donnell, all these, Howie Mandel. I got to see all this, and then in the '90s, Def Comedy Jam, and it's like,
Hmm.
whoa, what's and seeing how, and then the Comedy Channel came on, and um, so I was always a fan of it, and the class clown. So it's always
Yeah.
comedy's always been a part of me, and then my sister, who's an actor, um, she Dorothy Mane, she wanted to do a webisode, and this is before Instagram, Facebook, and everything.
Yeah.
She wanted to do a webisode, so she had improvisers come over, and it was like Jordan Savusa, Chris Rio, all these people, and I was watching. I was like, what are these? I didn't know what Whose Line Is It Anyways was. So first time seeing improvisers. I'm like, what's happening? Oh, this is cool, and they're really nice. And our Kevin was telling me, he's like, hey, you should take this class. So I took a class, which was Garrick Paikai's class of sketch comedy writing. And then the people there told me about, long story long, I got to another class of stand up comedy with Bobby Duncan. And his class was four lessons. You come up with your set. And then when the Comedy Crusaders perform, you would do a set, 5 minute set. And there was that, but it was Fisherman's Wharf. It was upstairs.
Okay. They used to have karaoke nights there
Yeah.
with
So,
Al Watterson and you.
well, funny because when I was there, it was Tiny Tadani was there. So,
Oh yeah.
um, I was so nervous. I was like, oh man, had the bubble guts all day. I was like, maybe I shouldn't go because I don't want to, I got to use the bathroom all the time. And even when I got there, I was like, I was sitting by the exit, by the stairs. I was like, I should just leave. I should. And then Bobby Duncan, who I worked with, again, 4 lessons, introduces me by the wrong name. He says James Maine. And I was like, this guy. So I was like, I got to go correct him. So I went upstage. I went up to the stage and did my set. And after I did the first joke and then that laugh that hit, that's when I got addicted. I was like, boom. In fact, it hit me so hard that I forgot my set.
Oh wow.
And luckily, yeah, so it was like the first joke. I was like, and it was today I would say it's a stupid joke. It's like, oh wow, this is pretty cool. I'm standing up here. But it feels kind of weird. It's like I'm the last person on the elevator and everybody's staring at me and they're looking down at me and they go, then they look at the corner and they say, maximum weight capacity. And then they hit, and then I forgot the rest of my set. And then luckily Bobby Duncan's sitting in front who knows my set. And he's like, he's trying to mouth it, but I can't read
Yeah.
lips. I was like, but maybe like 10 seconds, I just, nothing, which is a long time.
Yeah.
And then I go, oh, I'm sorry, folks. Bobby asked me to do a 5 minute set, but I only came up with 4.5 minutes. So I'm waiting for my time to catch up. I go, 3, 2, 1. Okay. And then I remembered and I started going. It's like, whew. So, yeah, I guess it just worked out. But it's funny because one of the things I learned, and I forget where I learned it from, I don't know if there's a book that I read too before I started doing. It's called the Comedy Bible with Judy Carter, and it goes through step by step on if you want to start out. And I think it's one of the things that she said, where the anxieties that you have, you pretend to put it in a box,
Mm-hmm.
and then you take that box and you put it under a chair, and it says, "It's okay to be nervous, but not right now. I got to go do this. I'll come back and I'll be nervous again." Um, and it's funny because I always picture the original Transformers cartoon
Mm-hmm.
where it brings out the
Yeah.
cube out of the chest. So
Yeah.
that's what I
Out of
picture.
Soundwave.
The
Yeah. Yeah.
energon
Yep.
cubes. And then I put it, I still do it today. When
Wow.
I perform Hawaii Theater, Paramount Theater in Austin, Texas. And then when I go into a place by myself and I go, put it down on the floor. And then I'm Shockwave, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
And then I go perform.
After you get off the stage, do you pick it back up and put it back in though, or you just leave it there?
No, I try to leave it behind, but it always finds its way back to me. But the best advice I got was from Kenny Johnson, the blind comedian. He used to perform at Sharky's with Bo Irvine and them. And when I was driving the bus, I was at the airport. He works at the airport. And I saw him because I've seen him perform before I did stand up. And I went outside and I sat next to him. Hey, Kenny, my name is James. I'm the bus driver. And I'm actually going to try stand up in a couple of weeks. You have any advice for me? And he says, just don't try to be funny. Your first few times, don't try to be funny. Just experience the anxieties.
Mm.
Everybody has them. But the difference between the stand-up comedian and everybody else, it gets easier to deal with. So just experience the anxieties and just go. Just talk. Over time, then you work on the funny. And it works.
Imagine if you were concentrating on the funny and, in the beginning you're figuring it out, that could crush that spirit of wanting to continue to do it because you're not achieving what it is that you desire.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm always curious to know, the thought process behind what is a comedian's why, and it's really neat that you kind of tied it all the way back to, interestingly enough, like seeing your parents kind of put on a performance of putting up this outward shell to other people, which is essentially, what you're doing here. It's still you, but it's a different version of you, right? In your comedy.
Well, the other part too is both my parents are trash talkers. So,
Oh yeah.
like, yeah, my dad. So my mom was talk a lot of trash. My
Mm-hmm.
dad is a chill, but when I hit you with one, it'll be a really good one.
So he's like the power puncher, and she's like the
Yeah,
speed speed bag.
yeah, yeah. Mom is that little dog that goes. And my dad's that bulldog just waits for his bite. So and I seen them like perform, like
Yeah.
talking trash, and that's why people ask me like, "What's the funniest shows?" It's like, the funniest shows is actually staying home.
Mm.
It's like it's staying home watching my dad talk trash to my brother, and it's just the funniest thing. Like I laugh the most just watching them two go back and forth. I've been lucky. I've been blessed to get into this business and work with a lot of people because I got to work with not name dropping or anything, but Dave Chappelle. I performed with him, and this is where I think why Andy helped me out is so it's almost like an audition every time you perform with one of these comedians.
Mm-hmm.
So when I opened for Dave Chappelle, they flew me to Maui, and I get there, I don't see him, so I just meet his people.
Mm-hmm.
So I go perform, and I did well. And then I come back, Dave goes up, and then I have my own room, dressing room. Dave has his dressing room. And then he gets off stage and comes to my dressing room and says, "Hey, man, come join me." And then that's like, I don't know if you heard, like in the 70s and 80s, that Johnny Carson, where when he had a stand-up comedian
Yeah.
perform, he would wave him over to the couch.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that's what that felt like. Dave
Yeah.
Chappelle, "Hey, come over." and then sat with him, and was all of a sudden now I'm part of the fraternity. Like I was welcome,
Mm.
welcome to. He welcomed me into his world of
Mm-hmm.
comics. Bert Kreischer, um, Patton Oswalt, a lot of these guys I was blessed to work with. But when they go drinking, I'm like, no, I'm going home. I got a kid. It's
Yeah.
like, she's not a kid, she's 20 now. But it's kind of like, no, you guys go ahead. I'll go to Jack in the Box drive through and then go home. Thank you guys. For some people, the party might be what they wanted originally.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was the stage time.
Yeah.
That was my party. That I got
Mm.
up there and I let it all out, and I want to take that gift home because I don't, after that adrenaline rush that comes after, and then I don't sleep till like, if the show's done at like, let's say 9, 10
Mm-hmm.
o'clock, I don't sleep till 4 because of the
Wow.
adrenaline from that killing on stage. So I come home and I'll play video games or watch TV, and because I don't want to get caught out there with, hey, try this.
Yeah.
Like Dave Chappelle asked me if I wanted to hit the joint, and I was like, my daughter was like um, fourth, third, fourth grade, and I always tell her, don't use drugs.
Yeah.
If I smoke this, you know, who she can't take my word. So I told him no, which he
Mm-hmm.
respected.
What I love about that is that you know yourself and you're true to yourself, because it's so easy for someone to try to change who they are to fit in with that, and in the end you're probably not going to get what it is you're truly seeking because you're not being authentic, right?
Yep, I'm the guy that goes home and eats Captain Crunch.
And I like that. That sounds way more exciting to me than going to the club. do you
So, yeah,
do,
I know I'm lactose intolerant, but I'm going to finish this.
so do you ever stick a sparkler in the cereal box?
I should. I should. I should. I have the Morning Glory ones though.
Yeah,
Those are the more dangerous sparklers.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
pop, 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 pop.
Well, James, I was a huge fan of you as a performer before this. Now I'm an even bigger fan of you as a person. Let people know how they can connect with you if they're not already fans of yours and want to follow your career. What's the best way to do that?
At comedian James Money. You'll find me on TikTok, Instagram, um, YouTube. Just look, Google search comedian James Money. Even my website, comedianjamesmoney.com, or even email me, comedianjamesmoney@gmail.
James, this has been awesome. Thank you so much, man, for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.